What if the secret to living longer was already sitting in your kitchen, not inside a pill bottle, not in some breakthrough therapy from a distant lab, but quietly waiting on your countertop or hidden in the back of your refrigerator drawer? A growing body of research shows that the right fruits, yes, fruits, can reduce inflammation, sharpen memory, lower the risk of chronic disease, and even extend your lifespan. But here's the problem. Most people over 60 are choosing the wrong ones. Or worse, eating them at the wrong time, in the wrong combinations, or skipping them entirely. And they're paying the price. Today, we're going to reveal 7 of the most powerful fruits for anyone over 60 who wants to stay independent, active, and mentally sharp for years to come. This isn't based on trends or fads, but on real, measurable patterns from the longest living populations on Earth, and studies that most doctors never mention during a routine visit. If you've ever felt confused walking through the produce aisle, wondering which fruits are truly worth adding to your daily plate, or if you've heard one too many conflicting headlines about sugar and fructose, this video will finally bring clarity. We'll also explore surprising signs that your body is missing critical fruit-based nutrients. Subtle symptoms you may already be feeling: low energy after meals, restless sleep, slower memory, even aches in the joints that seem to appear out of nowhere. These are not just signs of aging, they're warnings. Warnings that your body is missing something essential. And no, it's not just about eating an apple a day. It goes much deeper than that. We'll follow 2 very different seniors. One who embraced these fruit habits early, and one who ignored them until it was almost too late. Their stories will show exactly how small daily choices can lead to decades of difference. So stay with us until the end, because what you choose to eat this week could shape how you live 10 years from now. Comment number 1, if you're ready. Let's start with something many people overlook until it's too late. The slow, silent decline of memory. It rarely begins with something dramatic. Not a lost name or a forgotten address. It starts with hesitation, a pause, mid-sentence. Walking into a room and forgetting why. The creeping sense that the sharpness you once took for granted is beginning to fade. For Evelyn, those moments were signals. She had watched friends around her start to forget the smallest things. Some laughed it off. Others grew quietly afraid. Evelyn chose to act. That's when she discovered blueberries. Not just as a snack, but as a brain ally. Blueberries are rich in compounds called anthocyanins, natural pigments that give them their deep blue color. But their beauty goes beyond appearance. These compounds cross the blood-brain barrier, reducing inflammation in the brain and improving communication between neurons. In a study published by the National Institute on Aging, older adults who consumed wild blueberry juice daily showed measurable improvements in memory and learning within just 12 weeks. Evelyn began including a small bowl of fresh blueberries every morning. Not with sugary cereal, but with plain yogurt or steel-cut oats. Sometimes she froze them to keep a steady supply year-round. And over time, something subtle began to change. Words came easier. Focus sharpened. She no longer lost track of names during her weekly book club meetings. Meanwhile, Harold took a different path. He ignored the mental fog, blamed it on aging, shrugged off forgetfulness until it became a concern. When his daughter brought up blueberries, he scoffed. "Too expensive," he muttered, reaching for packaged pastries instead. By the time his cognitive screening showed signs of decline, Harold was already struggling with everyday tasks, and he began to wonder if it was just genetics, or if something more could have been done earlier. The truth is, blueberries are not a miracle, but they are part of a mosaic, a pattern of smart choices that protect the mind as the years unfold. If you've ever felt that pause, that mental lag, maybe your brain is asking for backup. Try adding a handful of blueberries each day. You may not feel the change overnight, but your future self will thank you. Now moving to the second factor that silently affects longevity, the strength and resilience of the heart. It doesn't announce its decline with a bang. Instead, it fades in the background. Tiredness after a short walk, shortness of breath while climbing stairs, an unusual heaviness in the chest. Most people ignore these signs until they're hooked to machines or sitting across from a cardiologist. But Evelyn didn't wait for symptoms. After her husband's sudden heart attack at 68, she made heart health her top priority. That's when she discovered something unexpected, the quiet power of the avocado. Creamy, rich, and often misunderstood, the avocado is one of the few fruits high in healthy fats, specifically monounsaturated fats that lower bad cholesterol and raise the good kind. It's also packed with potassium, more than a banana, and that makes a real difference in regulating blood pressure, reducing the strain on aging arteries. According to a Harvard study involving more than 100,000 participants, those who consumed avocados regularly had a 21% lower risk of coronary heart disease. The magic isn't just in the nutrients, it's in the consistency. Evelyn replaced margarine and processed spreads with mashed avocado. She used it in her salads, blended it into smoothies, and even made a chocolate avocado mousse for dessert when friends came over. Her cardiologist was astonished by her steady blood pressure and healthy cholesterol levels, even as she neared 80. Harold, on the other hand, always saw avocados as that trendy fruit for the young folks. He stuck to butter, processed meats, and microwave dinners. When his doctor mentioned heart risks, Harold shrugged. "I've been eating like this all my life." But by 78, the signs were there. Shortness of breath, an irregular heartbeat, and swelling in his ankles. A scan revealed clogged arteries. He started medication, but by then, his daily habits had already taken their toll. The truth? Heart disease is not a lightning strike, it's a slow erosion. And sometimes, the most powerful defense comes from what you spread on your toast in the morning. The first thing that often goes unnoticed is how inflammation quietly becomes the architect of decline. It begins deep within the body, without pain, without swelling, without warning. It doesn't shout. It whispers. And over time, that whisper becomes a roar. Aching joints. Fatigue that sleep can't fix. Slower recovery after minor injuries. Behind these symptoms is a quiet fire, chronic, low-grade inflammation that accelerates aging at the cellular level. Evelyn learned this from a book she picked up at the library. It explained how certain fruits naturally contain compounds that reduce inflammation, without side effects, without prescriptions. One fruit stood out for its simplicity and strength. The apple, crisp, common, underestimated. But apples, especially their skins, contain quercetin, a flavonoid known to reduce inflammatory markers in the body. They're also rich in soluble fiber, which nourishes the gut microbiome and helps regulate immune response. In one study from the University of Western Australia, older adults who consumed apples daily showed significantly lower levels of C-reactive protein, a key indicator of inflammation. So Evelyn made it part of her daily rhythm. Not just any apple. She chose red or green varieties rich in skin antioxidants. She ate them whole, sliced them into salads, sometimes stewed them with cinnamon for a warm evening treat. It was never about sugar. It was about strategy. And the results spoke for themselves. At 78, her joints remained limber. She still knelt in the garden for hours, standing up without a wince. Her hands, once threatened by early signs of arthritis, stayed nimble enough to thread a sewing needle. Harold, however, saw apples as just snacks for kids. He opted for crackers, cookies, and starchy sides. An apple won't change anything, he once told his daughter. But it wasn't just about one apple. It was about what he chose. Instead, foods that triggered inflammation. By the time he turned 80, Harold struggled with chronic knee pain. Climbing stairs became a challenge. He blamed it on age, but the truth was more complex. Because sometimes, the difference between stiffness and strength begins with a choice so small, it fits in the palm of your hand. Another habit that often gets ignored is how we treat the digestive system after 60. Most people think digestion is just about what you eat. But for older adults, it's about how your body processes and absorbs that food. And with age, that system slows down. Meals that once felt light now lead to bloating, gas, or sluggishness. It's subtle at first. But over time, poor digestion affects energy, mood, and even immune function. Evelyn noticed this shift in her early 60s. After lunch, she began to feel heavy. Not full, just weighed down. Her walks felt harder, her sleep less restful. She didn't want pills. She wanted solutions that worked with her body. That's when she discovered papaya. Papaya is more than just a tropical treat. It's a fruit with powerful digestive enzymes, especially papain. This natural compound helps break down proteins in the stomach, easing the burden on the digestive tract. Rich in fiber and water content, papaya also promotes regularity, reduces inflammation in the gut lining, and supports the balance of gut bacteria. Evelyn began incorporating a small bowl of ripe papaya into her afternoon routine. She noticed something within days. Meals no longer sat heavy. Her energy after eating returned. Her sleep deepened, and as the weeks passed, her body felt more in rhythm, more in tune. Meanwhile, Harold dismissed papaya as too exotic. He stuck to processed breads, red meats, and cheese-heavy meals that left him groggy and bloated. His daughter tried introducing papaya smoothies, but he waved them off. "I've never needed that stuff before," he'd say. But his body disagreed. Constipation became frequent. So did acid reflux. And without the proper absorption of nutrients, even his supplements started to fall short. He was eating, but not thriving. The gut isn't just where digestion happens, it's where health begins. And when it's supported, everything changes. Your energy, your clarity, your resilience. So the next time you pass by a papaya at the store, don't overlook it. It might be the key to restoring what your body's been quietly asking for. Here's the fifth behavior that slowly undermines your health. Ignoring what's happening. At the cellular level. You can't feel it. You can't see it in the mirror. But inside your body, every single day, your cells are aging. They're dividing more slowly, repairing less effectively, producing more waste than they can clear. And unless something interrupts this process, that cellular wear and tear begins to show up as real decline, fatigue, reduced immunity, brittle skin, and loss of muscle tone. Evelyn didn't wait for those signs. She understood that longevity wasn't just about how she felt. It was about what was happening inside. That's when she learned about pomegranates. Often called nature's ruby, the pomegranate is packed with punicalagins, a type of antioxidant far more potent than those found in red wine or green tea. But its real power lies in how it affects the mitochondria, the tiny engines inside, your cells. A groundbreaking study from the University of Lausanne found that a compound in pomegranates, when metabolized by gut microbes, helped renew and strengthen mitochondrial function, delaying signs of cellular aging. Evelyn made it part of her routine. She drank small amounts of fresh pomegranate juice, not the sweetened commercial kind, but pure extract. She sprinkled the seeds over salads and yogurt, and over time, she noticed something remarkable. Her energy remained steady throughout the day. Her skin held a natural glow. Her endurance during her morning walks even improved. Harold, however, never gave pomegranates a second glance. "Too messy," he said, laughing. "And what's it even supposed to do?" But at 82, his doctor noted signs of sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, and mild anemia. His body wasn't rebuilding like it used to. His wounds took longer to heal. His skin bruised easily. The signs were clear. His cells were aging faster than they should. What Harold didn't realize is that you don't need to see the decline for it to be happening. Cellular aging is invisible until it isn't. And sometimes, the antidote isn't in a bottle. It's in a fruit with seeds that stain your fingers and restore your cells. As we move forward, there's a sixth pattern that deserves attention: the fear of fruit among those managing blood sugar. Too many older adults are taught to be wary of sweetness. They hear fruit and think sugar spike. As a result, they cut out the very foods that could help balance their metabolism and stabilize energy. That's exactly what happened to Harold. After his pre-diabetes diagnosis, he removed nearly all fruit from his diet. Too risky, he'd say. But what he didn't realize was that not all sugars are created equal, and some fruits, especially certain berries, don't raise blood sugar. They actually help regulate it. Berries like raspberries, blackberries, and strawberries are rich in polyphenols, which improve insulin sensitivity and slow down the digestion of glucose. They're also low in natural sugars and high in fiber, a combination that flattens the blood sugar curve instead of spiking it. A study from the University of Illinois found that consuming a cup of mixed berries with a high-carbohydrate meal significantly reduced post-meal insulin and glucose levels. Evelyn embraced this. She wasn't afraid of berries. She respected them. Every evening, she'd have a small bowl of mixed berries with a handful of walnuts or plain Greek yogurt. Not only did her energy stay even throughout the day, but she also avoided the late afternoon crash that Harold often blamed on getting older. Harold, on the other hand, turned to low-sugar processed snacks and sugar-free sodas. But these replacements brought no real nourishment. His energy swung up and down. He found himself more irritable, more fatigued after meals, and he couldn't figure out why. It wasn't the absence of sugar, it was the absence of nutrients. Berries aren't just sweet, they're strategic. And when used wisely, they can bring balance back to a body that's struggling to manage itself. If you've been avoiding berries for the wrong reasons, it might be time to reconsider. Finally, there's one last habit that might surprise you: neglecting the immune system when it needs you the most. As the body ages, the immune response weakens. Fewer white blood cells, slower recovery, higher risk of infection. What used to be a mild cold can suddenly knock you down for days. And yet, many older adults wait for illness to strike before they think about immunity. Evelyn didn't. Each morning she reached for a familiar fruit, an orange, or sometimes a grapefruit, or slices of lemon in warm water. Simple choices. But behind those choices was science. Citrus fruits are loaded with vitamin C, but that's just the beginning. They contain flavonoids, especially hesperidin, which have been shown to reduce inflammation and support the production of immune cells. A recent study from the University of Otago in New Zealand revealed that older adults who consumed kiwis or oranges daily experienced fewer and less severe episodes of the common cold and other viral illnesses. Evelyn made it a ritual. In winter, when others bundled up and braced for flu season, She fortified her body from within. She combined citrus with ginger and a bit of honey. She used lemon zest in her salads and orange slices in her water. It wasn't about chasing health. It was about building it, one choice at a time. Harold, however, relied on cough drops and over-the-counter meds. He believed in toughing it out. He didn't think vitamin C could do much. "If I get sick, I'll deal with it," he'd say. But when he did get sick, recovery dragged on. He caught colds more frequently. One winter, a minor respiratory infection turned into a 3-week ordeal that left him exhausted. His body wasn't bouncing back like it used to. The difference wasn't luck, it was preparation. Immune resilience isn't something you build when you need it. It's something you build every day, especially after 60. So now we've seen it. Not just the science, not just the facts, but the lived reality of how simple, daily choices shape the path we walk in our 70s, our 80s, and beyond. We saw it in Evelyn, a woman who didn't wait for symptoms to show, who read, questioned, adapted, who used fruit not as decoration on a plate, but as medicine woven into her life. Her energy, her clarity, her resilience, none of it was luck. It was built, slowly and intentionally, from the inside out. And we saw it in Harold, a man who meant well, who lived with heart, but not always with awareness, who believed that what he'd always done would always be enough. But time has a way of collecting the interest on every habit we carry, good or bad. These aren't just stories, they're reflections. Because somewhere between Evelyn and Harold is where most of us stand. If you've made it this far, it means something. It means you're searching, not just for more years, but for better years. For mornings that begin without stiffness, for afternoons with steady energy, for nights of deep sleep and minds that remain sharp. And the truth is that future is still in your hands. What you eat matters. What you choose today matters. Not because fruit is magic, but because your body is. And when it's given the right support, it can surprise you, no matter how old you are. So take a step. Maybe it's adding a handful of blueberries to breakfast, swapping butter for avocado, slicing an apple instead of opening a bag of chips, drinking real pomegranate juice, reaching for papaya after a heavy meal, tossing a few berries into your afternoon snack, starting the day with warm lemon water. They're small acts, but they echo through time. If this video helped you see your health differently, leave a comment. If you learned something new, give it a like. If you believe more people need to hear this, share it with someone you care about. And if you want to keep walking this path of wisdom and longevity with us, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next step. Because aging is not a decline. It's a decision, and the best years might still be ahead.